863 if you're following along with your gospel. And last week, you got the full explanation of Bhakti and Jnana from Swami Sarvadevananda while reading this. I'm going to start halfway down the page on 863. Doctor to the devotees. If he, meaning Sri Ramakrishna, had studied books, he could not have acquired so much knowledge. Faraday communed with nature. That is why he was able to discover many scientific truths. He could not have known so much from the mere study of books. Mathematical formulas only throw the brain into confusion and bar the path of original inquiry. Master. There was a time when I lay on the ground in the Panchavati and prayed to the Divine Mother. O Mother, reveal to me what the karmis have realized through their ritualistic worship. Karmis are the ritualists. What the yogis have realized through yoga, and what the jnanis have realized through discrimination. How much I commune with the Divine Mother. How can I describe it all? What is through? Sleep left me completely. The Master sang, my sleep is broken, how can I slumber any more? For now I am awake in the sleeplessness of yoga. O Divine Mother, made one with thee in yoga sleep at last. My slumber I have lulled asleep forevermore. A man has come to me from a country where there is no night. Rituals and devotions have all grown profitless for me. He's speaking of samadhi, which makes one appear asleep. He continued, I have not read books, but people show me respect because I chant the name of the Divine Mother. Shambhu Malik said about me, here is a great hero turned without a sword or shield. Laughter. The conversation turned to the performance of a drama by Girish Ghosh called The Life of Buddha. The doctor had seen the play and been much pleased with it. Doctor to Girish, you're a very bad man. Must I go to the theater every day? Master to M, what does he say? I don't quite understand. M, the doctor liked the play very much. Master to Ishan, why don't you say something? Pointing to the doctor, he does not believe in that God can incarnate himself in a human form. Ishan, what shall I say, sir? I don't like to argue anymore. Master sharply, why? Won't you say the right thing? Ishan to the doctor, our faith is shallow on account of our pride. It is said in the Ramayana that a crow named Bhushandi did not at first accept Rama as an incarnation of God. Once it incurred Rama's displeasure. It traveled through the 3 different worlds, the lunar, solar, and so forth, and through Mount Kailash to escape Rama's wrath. But it found that it could not escape. Then it surrendered itself to him and took refuge at his feet. Rama took the crow in his hand and swallowed it. Thereupon the crow found that it was seated in its own nest in a tree. After its pride had thus been crushed, the bird came to realize that though Rama looked like any other man, yet he contained in his stomach the entire universe, sky, moon, sun, stars, oceans, rivers, men, animals, and trees. Master to the doctor, it is very difficult to understand that God can have be a finite human being and at the same time the all-pervading soul of the universe. The absolute and the relative are his 2 aspects. How can we say emphatically with our small intelligence that God cannot assume a human form? Can we ever understand all these ideas with our little intellect? Can a 1-seer pot hold 4 seers of milk? Therefore, one should trust in the words of holy men and great souls, those who have realized God. They constantly think of God as a lawyer of his lawsuits. Do you believe the story of the crow Bhushandi? Doctor, I accept as much as I want to. All difficulties come to an end if only God reveals his true nature to the seeker. Then there can be no confusion. How can I accept Rama as an incarnation of God? Take the example of his killing Vali, the monkey chieftain. He hid himself behind a tree like a thief and murdered Vali. This is how a man acts, and not God. Girish, but sir, such an action is possible only for God. Doctor, then take the example of his sending Sita into exile. Girish, this too, sir, is possible only for God, not for man. Ishan to the doctor, why don't you believe in the incarnation of God? Just now you said that God has form since he has created all these forms, and that God is formless because since he created the mind, which is without form. A moment ago you said that everything is possible for God. Master, laughing, it is not mentioned in his science that God can take human form, so how can he believe it? All laugh. Listen to a story. A man said to his friend, I have just seen a house fall down with a terrific crash. Now, the friend to whom he told this had received an English education. He said, just a minute, let me look it up in the newspaper. He read the paper but could not find the news of a house falling down with a crash. Thereupon he said to his friend, well, I don't believe you. It isn't in the paper, so it is all false. All laughed. Girish to the doctor, you must admit that Krishna is God. I will not let you look on him as a mere man. You must admit that he is either God or a demon. Master, unless a man is guileless, he cannot so easily have faith in God. God is far, far away from the mind steeped in worldliness. Worldly intelligence creates many doubts and many forms of pride of learning, wealth, and the rest. Pointing to the doctor, he is guileless. How guileless Keshav Sen was. One day he visited the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. At about 4 p.m, he went around to the guest house where the poor were fed and asked when the beggars would be fed. He didn't know that it was too late in the day for the feeding of the poor. As a man's faith increases, so does his knowledge of God. The cow that discriminates too much about food gives milk in driblets, but the cow that gulps down everything, herbs, leaves, grass, husks, straw, gives milk in torrents. All laugh. God cannot be realized without childlike faith. The mother says to her child, pointing to a boy, he is your elder brother. And the child at once believes that the boy is 100% his brother. Again, the mother says that a bogeyman lives in a certain room, and the child 100% that the bogeyman lives in the room. God bestows his grace on the devotee who has this faith of a child. God cannot be realized by the mind steeped in worldliness. Doctor to the devotees, it is not right, however, to make the cow yield milk by feeding her all sorts of things. One of my cows was fed that way. I drank its milk, and the result was that I became seriously ill. At first, I was at a loss to know the cause. After much inquiry, I found out that the cow had been given the wrong things to eat. I was in a great fix. I had to go to Lucknow for a change to get rid of the illness. I spent 12,000 rupees. Roars of laughter. It is very difficult always to find out the precise relationship between cause and effect. A child of 7 months in a wealthy family had an attack of whooping cough. I was called in for consultation. Even after much effort, I could not find out the cause of the illness. At last, I learnt that the child had been given the milk of an ass that had been drenched in the rain. All laugh. Master to the devotees, how strange. It is like saying that a man has an acid stomach because he passed in his coach under a tamarind tree. All laugh. Doctor with a smile, let me tell you another. The captain of a ship had a bad headache. After consultation, the doctors on board had a blister applied to the side of the boat. All laugh. Master to the doctor, for the seekers of God, the constant company of holy men is necessary. The disease of worldly people has become chronic, as it were. They should carry out the instruction of holy men. What will they gain by merely listening to their advice? They must not only take the prescribed medicine, but also follow a strict diet. Diet is important. Doctor, yes, it is diet more than anything else that causes the cure. Master, there are 3 classes of physicians: superior, mediocre, and inferior. The inferior physician feels the patient's pulse, merely asks him to take the medicine, and then goes away. He doesn't bother to find out whether the patient has followed his directions. The mediocre physician gently tries to persuade the patient to take the medicine. He says, look here, how can you get well without medicine? Take the medicine, my dear. I am preparing it with my own hands. But the superior physician follows a different method. If he finds the patient stubbornly refusing to swallow the medicine, he presses the patient's chest with his knee and forces the medicine down his throat. In this, I think, if we look at this carefully, when he says diet is very important, look at the statement he said before, that worldly people should carry out the instructions of holy people. This doesn't have a lot to do with necessarily with the food we eat. It's the food we put in our minds and spirits. Follow the instructions of the holy men. When you follow a strict diet. As they say, the diet is what you eat with your mouth, what you eat with your eyes, your mind, everything. Doctor, there is a form of treatment that does not require the physician to press the patient's chest with his knee. For instance, homeopathy. Master, there is no fear if a good physician presses the patient's chest with his knee. Like the physicians, there are 3 classes of religious teachers. The inferior teacher is content with merely giving spiritual instruction. He doesn't bother about the student after that. The mediocre teacher explains the teaching again and again for the good of the student, but that he may assimilate it. He persuades the student through love and kindness to follow it. But the superior teacher uses force if necessary on the stubborn student. To the doctor, the renunciation of lust and greed is meant for the sannyasi. He must not look even at the picture of a woman. Do you know what a woman is to a man? She is like spiced pickle. The very thought of pickle brings water to the tongue. It doesn't have to be brought near the tongue. But this renunciation is not meant for householders like you. It is meant only for sannyasi. You may live among women as far as possible in a spirit of detachment. Now and then you must retire into solitude and think of God. Women must not be allowed there. You can lead an unattached life to a great extent if you have faith in God and love for Him. After the birth of 1 or 2 children, a married couple should live as brother and sister. They should then constantly pray to God that their minds may not run after sense pleasures anymore, and that they may not have any more children. Girish, to the doctor with a smile. You have already spent 3 or 4 hours here. What about your patients? Doctor, well, my practice and my patients. I shall lose everything on account of your Paramahamsa. All laugh. Master, there is a river called the Karmanasa. It is very dangerous to dive into that river. If a man plunges into its waters, he cannot perform any more action. It puts an end to his duties. All laugh. Karmanasa literally means destroyer of duties. Doctor to Girish, M, and the other devotees. My friends, consider me as one of you. I am not saying this as a physician, but if you think of me as your own, then I am yours. Master to the doctor. There is such a thing as love for love's sake. It is very good if you can grow much love. Prahlada loved God for the sake of love. A devotee like Prahlada says, O God, I do not want wealth, fame, creature comforts, or any such thing. Please grant me the boon that I may have genuine love for thy lotus feet. Doctor, you are right, sir. I have seen people bowing down before the image of Kali. They seek worldly objects from the goddess, such as a job, the healing of disease, and so forth. To the Master, the illness you are suffering from does not permit the patient to talk with people, but my case is an exception. You may talk with me when I am here. All laugh. Master, please cure my illness. I cannot chant the name and glories of God. Doctor, meditation is enough. Master, what do you mean? Why should I lead a monotonous life? I enjoy my fish in a variety of dishes, curried fish, fried fish, pickled fish, and so forth. Sometimes I worship God with rituals. Sometimes I repeat His names. Sometimes I meditate on Him. Sometimes I sing His name and glories. Sometimes I dance in His name. Doctor, neither am I monotonous. Master, your son Amrita does not believe in the incarnation of God. What is the harm in that? One realizes God even if one believes Him to be formless. One also realizes God if he believes that God has form. 2 things are necessary for the realization of God: faith and self-surrender. Man is ignorant by nature. Errors are natural to him. Can a 1-seer pot hold 4 seers of milk? Whatever path you may follow, you must pray to God with a restless heart. He is the ruler of the soul within. He will surely listen to your prayer if it is sincere. Whether you follow the ideal of the personal God or that of the impersonal truth, you will realize God alone, provided you are restless for Him. A cake with icing tastes sweet whether you eat it straight or sideways. Your son Amrita is a nice boy. Doctor, he is your disciple. Master with a smile. There is not a fellow under the sun who is my disciple. On the contrary, I am everybody's disciple. All are the children of God. All are His servants. I too am a child of God. I too am His servant. Uncle Moon is every child's uncle. Now we have a little more time left. We're on chapter 46, The Master and Dr. Sakar. Friday, October 23rd, 1885. It was the day of the full moon following the Durga Puja, the worship of the Divine Mother. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Sri Ramakrishna was talking to M, who was helping him with his socks. Master smiling. Why can't I cut my woolen scarf into 2 pieces and wrap them around my legs like socks? They would be very nice and warm. M smiled. The previous evening, Sri Ramakrishna had had a long conversation with Dr. Sakar. Referring to it, the master said laughingly, I told him the story of the calf and about egotism being the cause of all suffering. The younger Narayan reminded Sri Ramakrishna that he, the master, had told the doctor about people's suffering from the threefold misery of the world and still bragging of their well-being. The disciple said, that was a very nice thing you said yesterday about the thorn, and also about burning it in the fire of knowledge. Master, I had direct visions of those things. One day I was passing back of the kuti when my whole body burst into flames, as it were, like the fire of a homa. Padmalochan once said to me, I shall convene an assembly of pundits and proclaim your spiritual experiences before all. But he died shortly after. At 11 o'clock, M went to Dr. Sakar's house to report Sri Ramakrishna's condition. The doctor showed a great eagerness to hear about him. Doctor laughing. How well I told him yesterday that in order to be able to say to who, thou, one must fall into the hands of an expert carder. This is kind of funny. The two of them were very pleased with what they told each other. M. It is true, sir. One cannot get rid of egotism without the help of a capable teacher. How well he spoke last night of bhakti. Bhakti, like a woman, can go into the inner court. Doctor, yes, that is very nice, but still, one cannot give up jnana. M, but he does not say that. He accepts both knowledge and love, the impersonal truth and the personal God. He says that through the cooling influence of bhakti, a part of the reality takes the solid form of the personal God. And with the rise of the sun of jnana, the ice of form melts again into the formless water of the Absolute. In other words, you realize God with form through bhakti yoga and the formless Absolute through jnana yoga. You must have noticed that he sees God so near to him that he always converses with him. When suffering from illness, he says to God like a small child, "Oh, Mother, it is hurting me." How wonderful his power of observation is. He saw a fossil in the museum. At once, he gave it as an example of the effect of companionship with holy persons. Just as an object is turned into stone by remaining near stone, so does a man become holy by living with a holy man. Doctor, yesterday, Ishan Babu talked of the incarnation of God. What is that? To call man God. M. Everyone has his own faith. What is the use of interfering with it? Doctor, yes, what is the use? M. How the master made us laugh when he told us about a certain man who refused to believe that a house had collapsed because it was not published in the newspaper. Dr. Sakar remained silent. Sri Ramakrishna had said to him, "Your science does not speak of God's incarnation. Therefore, you say that God cannot incarnate himself as a man." It was midday. Dr. Sakar took M with him in his carriage. He was going to visit Sri Ramakrishna after seeing his other patients. A few days before, At Girish's invitation, Dr. Sakar had seen his play about Buddha's life. He said to M, "It would have been better to speak of Buddha as the incarnation of compassion. Why did he speak of him as an incarnation of Vishnu?" The doctor set M down at the corner of Cornwallis Square. It was 3:00 in the afternoon. One or two devotees were seated near Sri Ramakrishna. He became impatient like a child. Repeatedly he asked the devotees, "When is the doctor coming? What time is it now?" Dr. Sakar was expected in the evening. Suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna was overwhelmed with a strange mood. He placed his pillow on his lap. Filled with maternal love, he began to caress it and hold it to his breast as if it were his child. He was in an ecstatic mood. His face was lighted with a childlike smile. He put his cloth in a strange manner. The devotees looked at him in amazement. A little later, Sri Ramakrishna was in his normal mood. It was time for his meal. He ate a little boiled farina. He was talking to M about his mystic experiences. "Master," to M, aside, "do you know what I saw just now in my ecstatic state? There was a meadow covering an area of 7 or 8 miles, through which lay the road to Sihor. I was alone in that meadow. I saw a 16-year-old Paramahamsa boy exactly like the one I had seen in the Panchavati. A mist of bliss lay all around. Out of it emerged a boy, 13 or 14 years old. I saw his face. He looked like Purna. Both of us were naked. Then we began to run around joyfully in the meadow. Purna felt thirsty. He drank some water from a tumbler and offered me what was left. I said to him, 'Brother, I cannot take your leavings.' Thereupon he laughed, washed the glass, and brought me fresh water." Sri Ramakrishna was again in samadhi. He regained consciousness and began to talk to M. "Master, my mind is undergoing a change. I cannot take prasad anymore. The real and the appearance have become one to me. Do you know what I saw just now? A divine form, a vision of the Divine Mother. She had a child in her womb. She gave birth to it, and the next instant began to swallow it, and as much of it as went into her mouth became void. It was revealed to me that everything is void. The Divine Mother said to me, as it were, 'Come confusion, come delusion, come.'" This reminded M of Sri Ramakrishna saying that the magician alone is real and all else unreal. "Master, well, how is it that the other time I tried to attract Purna but failed? This weakens my faith a little." M, "But to attract a person is to work a miracle." "Master, yes, a downright miracle." M, "You remember one day we were returning to Dakshineshwar in a carriage from Adhar's house when a bottle broke. One of us said to you, 'Does that mean that any harm will befall us?' What do you think? You said, 'What do I care? Why should I bother about it? That would be miracle working.'" Master, "Yes, people lay ailing children down in the ground where men chant the name of God in order that they may be cured, or people cure disease through occult powers. All this is miracle working. Only those whose spiritual experience is extremely shallow call on God for the healing of disease." And I think we'll stop there because then we go on to the next evening. Well, not the next evening, later in the evening. Are there any questions or any comments about what we have read? Okay. It's nice to see all of you, and I hope you're going to have a very nice 4th of July. I hope you stay safe, stay in, do whatever you're doing, or have a good time. We'll end with a chant. Oh, Sunday, Pravrajika Vrajaprana will be speaking on freedom. This is our Freedom Weekend. And next Wednesday, we will have a class at 5 p.m., but Swami Brahmananda, who was in Hollywood and then went to Washington, D.C., will be here that evening and give the class. And we will then have the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna next Saturday, as usual, at 5. Okay, so we'll end with a chant. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.